So I spent the last couple of days learning to make a wedge heel sock, and we're gonna see if I can get through it. I have always done a wrapped heel before. I think the first three socks, two or three that I tried to do, I failed and had to frog. But I do have one successful one, and I'm hoping to accomplish its mate. The most unfortunate thing is I managed to make it too big for my youngest son, but too small for my next older one. So my youngest son's gonna get the socks. He's just gonna have to grow before it fits well. But that is one thing he's guaranteed to do, grow. So I'm not too worried about it. All right, start with my waist yarn.
Boys, go to bed.
Toe for this sock is the same as the toes I always make, and I still mostly prefer toe up socks just because I like how when I'm done, the sock is done and comes off the cylinder done. I don't have to Kitchener anything or do anything extra because I'm lazy. I like to be done once I'm done. I pushed my needle down. I'm going to do that. Probably have my yarn feeder a little too close, but not close enough that I'm going to bother moving it. I think next time I make socks for my younger son, I used the 72 cylinder, which is what I use for his older brothers and my husband, and I think his feet are still small enough that he needs a 64 or maybe even a 60, which is what I usually use for myself still. I think his and my feet are very similar in size. But I haven't made him socks in a while, so I was thinking maybe he would need the bigger ones, but not quite yet. This is Seriously Sock by Hot Springs Fiber Company in the colorway, well, it's part of the Rainbow Camo collection that she and I dyed last year around this time. And I have, I think, 5 different colors in the collection, but I had a couple of extra of the green and orange, so I'm making the green, some of the socks from the green. I kind of think I'm going to save the full set of 5 for maybe some really fun shawl or a fade or something. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with that yet. But I'm going to, I need to make a few pairs of socks, so that was easy. Setting my heel forks. I love these heel forks. I always recommend a rhythm to your work. So my rhythm is, if I'm lifting or lowering needles, I always do that as soon as I stop cranking. That way I never have to go, did I do that? It's always the first thing I do as soon as I stop cranking. And then I always remember that I lifted it. So if I need to raise my heel forks, I lift first and then adjust. There we go. That one doesn't work. That one doesn't want to come out of the... There we go. Always make sure it catches. I always drop my needles by bumping them with my hand when I'm working. Make sure they stay up. Getting close to being done with the toe. Taking out my forks. Drop my needles. Gonna drape those in between where my work is. Take out my weight. And I'm gonna hang my toe. I really find hanging the toe very satisfying. I don't know why I like it. It's simple and I don't know, I just like hanging the toe. You guys will have to comment and let me know what camera angle y'all like best. This is the basic angle where 12 o'clock is here, and this is the angle from which Dean and Bean suggests you work. Because of the setup of my office and the available space, I work from the handle, which is kind of unusual, but I filmed from both angles in the past, so. Oops, I don't want to hang my ravel cord. That would not be good. I want to hang my sock. Darn. There we go. This first one always wants to jump off. When we get done, I will compare the wedge heel and show you how it looks different from the wrap and turn heel that I've done in the past. That should be good. Be careful when you're pulling it tight because you don't want to skip any of these toe stitches. Because if you do, your toe will unravel. There we go. So there's my hung toe. Let's get that ravel cord out of there. The only downside to the green camo sock is the green ravel cord tends to hide. Not exactly the same kind of limey green, but it's close. I find I don't have any trouble. If I pull my ravel cord out of the first 2 or 3 stitches on the bottom, I don't have any problem just ripping my ravel cord out of the bottom. I have to hold my cylinder steady, but it pops right out. I know Dean and Bean recommends you just pick it out one by one, but I've never had a problem. Famous last words, right? Watch me start having a problem now. There's my bonnet off. Okay. Now I usually will leave my heel spring on and use my hands until I get my main mark back to the starting point. put my, like I said, I think my yarn feeder might be a little bit too close to my cylinder. And I've got it set so I can do my foot rows. Now I am going to have to refer to my pattern because this is only the, if I do it successfully, it will be the second successful wedge heel I've ever done. But we're going to do 62 foot rows, and that is the money shot, easy peasy part. Just making sure everything's catching. Oops. Just watch the first couple of rows, make sure none of the stitches skipped. Maybe one. Sometimes in the corners where the main mark and the halfway mark are, that's where I generally find the first couple of foot rows seem to want to jump or skip. After that, it's usually pretty good. Weight got caught on my bottom down here, and so it wasn't pulling down, and so you can see we jumped a couple of stitches. That's easy to fix. Sometimes that soft weight just gets stuck on the gear down at the bottom. Alright, this will be the beginning of, oh nope, one more row. This will be the beginning of my wedge heel. So this is my main mark, and this blue one is my halfway point. These green marks are my wedge heel marks, and these red marks are my targets. So I'm going to begin with the target closest to my main mark, which is, I'm going to skip that first needle, and then I'm going to raise these needles up to my main mark. Then I'm going to crank a little bit, maybe halfway around, and then I'm going to raise all of the needles from my main mark to my halfway mark. And this is going to be slow going because I'm having to refer to my pattern. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to start raising one after the target mark all the way to the halfway point, which gives me this middle section in work and all the rest of my needles raised. I'm going to engage the heel spring. Oops, well, maybe I am. There we go. And I'm going to remove my soft weight and set my cable ring. I don't need this on right now. Turn that off. I don't want to know how many rows the heel is taking. set my heel forks. One advantage I noticed for the wedge heel is you don't have to move your heel forks nearly as often. Just maybe 2 or 3 times the whole process. I think the wedge heel might take up more yarn though. I don't have a data to support that. It just looks like it does to me. And reset my weight. I've started putting my weight in upside down because I find that the knot catches on my hooks as it ages. All right, we're gonna lift the last needle worked, which is this one. And watch carefully to make sure it catches. And then I'm gonna lift one and drop 3. And we're gonna lift one and drop 3 until I get to the main mark side wedge heel target. So lift 1, drop 3. Usually I do pretty good learning these things from Dean and Bean's tutorial videos on YouTube, but this is one that I needed the written instructions. I had so much trouble following it on YouTube, but once I got the paper printed and put in my hand, it was a lot easier. Okay to pass the main and halfway marks because we're headed for those green wedge heel target marks. Always feels funny to me when I go past the main and halfway marks, but that is correct. What we are not going to go past are those green target marks. So over here, I can't drop 3 because if I did, it would take me past my green target mark. So I'm only going to drop 2. Now I'm going to lift and wrap. Gonna go ahead and push down only 2 because again if I did 3 we would be past my green target mark and I don't want to do that. Make sure that catches. Then I'm going to lift and wrap. And then we're just going to crank a little bit here. Just about there. Then we're going to drop all these out of work needles so that all the work needles are now in work. And then we're going to crank around 1 time. Make sure everything's down low on my... Okay, we're going to go actually a little bit further here. There we go. And now I'm going to move up my heel forks. And they're going to need it because as you can see, they are way down here at this point. they go. Get this one up a little higher. There we go. Put my weight back in. Now my weight's going to snag on these heel forks, so when I get ready to move them again, I have to be really careful. Alright, and we are going to do all that again. So we're going to lift, find our target mark, skip that first needle, and then lift to the main mark. Crank a little bit of the way around, and then lift all of these needles between my main mark and my halfway point. Go a little bit further here, and then we're going to do the halfway mark side of things. Alright, now we're going to lift this one and crank around. Then we're going to begin lifting 1 and dropping 3. Watch your yarn and make sure it's going where it's supposed to and catching how it's supposed to. Lift 1, drop 3. Oh, this is the one where I don't drop 3 because I would go past my green mark. So now I'm going to lift and wrap and only push down 2 on this side. Then I'm going to lift and wrap over here. And then we're just going to go a little ways this time. and push down all the needles. Now we're going to go around one full time. The yarn gets caught on this heel spring sometimes. Then we're going to go half a time and adjust our heel forks. So because my heel forks are going to be sticking into my weight probably, I'm going to take them completely off. Oh, you know, I guess I don't have to take them completely off. I just can't pull out my weight. Alright, and then we're going to start back over with the third wedge now, one more time, by lifting from our main mark until one before the target mark. So we're leaving one down. Oh, I have dropped a stitch right here, so I'm going to catch it and we'll repair it in a second. So here, I don't know how I dropped one. Don't know if I bumped it or what, but several stitches down, I'm going to take my latch hook and go into that stitch and fix it. If you catch them, they're not too hard to fix, actually. Pick them right back up again. If they get too far down and you can't reach with your latch hook, it becomes a bit more of a pain. But as long as it's just down the leg or the foot, and well, I didn't get it over the. Try that one more time. There we go. All right. Now, what was I doing? Oh, we were gonna raise the back half of the needles. That's where we were. Okay. My main mark back over here, and then we're going to lift the ones on this side. Except for one, we're going to leave one unlifted. All right. And now we're going to lift and one and drop three again. Excuse me. And I can tell my heel fork needs to come up in the middle here a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that. Up. So you see my needles here didn't raise when I came over. That tells me my flipper's stuck. They should go up. There we go. Good idea to always start slow when you're going back and forth like this.
Early or late? Early or late?
You know what? I think I was supposed to adjust my... Maybe I was supposed to adjust my heel forks and I didn't. I don't know. This is being a little difficult. Alright, now we are only going to be able to drop 2. That's okay. And then this one we're going to lift, wrap, and drop 2. Now we're going to lift this one and wrap it. We're not going to be dropping any more. We're just going to go a little ways. And then we're going to drop all our needles. And we're going to crank 1 full row, making sure everything catches. And since that was our 3rd wedge, we're not going to repeat another wedge. We're going to crank 1 more full row. All right, now we can take off our heel spring. Take out our forks. This one. And we're going to reset our cable ring here. You can see this heel looks much roomier than the wrap and turn heels I have been doing. There's a lot of extra fabric up in there. And I am going to need to stuff it all down into that ring. There we go. And turn my rope counter back on because now we're going to move on to the leg. And I did a short leg for this sock. So it's only a 25 row leg. Then I'm going to prep the cuff. I always want to take that out. I don't need to take that out for the cuff. I'm just going to be marking my stitches for hanging the cuff later. Oop. I don't want it actually on the neighboring needle. That's not helpful. I just want it on the stitch. Just making a little slip knot around that stitch there. And then I'm going to reset it. I'm doing a little cuff on it too. Probably should have done a bigger cuff, but we're going to make it match the other sock. I did a 20 row cuff for some weird reason. I should have done a 30 row cuff. Don't know what I was thinking actually. There we go. That's my cuff stitches marked. Make sure nothing's getting stuck as the things go down. And now I'm ready to hang my cuff, which, much like the toe, I find very satisfying. So get my weight out of there. I'm going to take off my cable ring. I'm not going to need that. And you just want to be careful when you do this that you don't pull anything off a needle. So I kind of turn my sock, not exactly inside out, but I kind of pull it up and fold it over so it's easy to hang. When you crank like this, you have to hold the stitches over here down with your finger because there's no weight in there to hold them down for you. And unlike hanging the toe, these don't tend to pull and disappear nearly as easily. But it is a little trickier to stay in the right line, in the right row, because you don't have obvious waste yarn and ravel cords marking your row. But I've noticed if I'm not sure, once I get to the stitch before or after the one I picked up with a marker, if you just give it a little tug, it should move this stitch. If you're tugging on the next stitch and the one with the marker is not moving at all, you might have the row above or below where you're aiming to be. It's not the total end of the world, it just may make your cuff a little wonky. For your frame of reference, you're hanging the smileys onto the needles, not the frowns. This is, I don't know how well y'all can see it, but this is a good example. When I pull the right stitch over here, you can see the yarn with the blue on it moves. So I definitely have the right thing. And I just take my markers off as I come to them. And again, whenever I have to crank around, I'm going to hold the sock down over here and hang that last little bit. All right. as I often say, the only thing that I really wish my Dean and Bean had that it does not is a brake. I know Dean and Bean has said they don't think it needs one because if you don't crank it doesn't move, but I find when I'm trying to do things like this, it does move because the handle is heavy and it drives me nuts. So I wish it had a little brake. Just something to hold it in place when I am working like this. Oh, another thing, and now that I've knit all the stitches, I am going to take this off and put it in the middle of my cylinder. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and engage the heel spring because it keeps the yarn out of my way. Even though you don't really need it per se. Oh, there's a little bug in my house. Lovely. I can hold the cylinder in place obviously with my left hand, but sometimes that's a problem. Like if I'm picking up a drop stitch and I'm using both my hands, it's not convenient to hold the cylinder in place with one hand. Lottie is 2 years old. She was 2 years old in June. And I've replaced a few things on her. We've had to replace the piece that holds her tension. Can't think what they're called right now. It holds the little flippers that are, they're called, they have a name. In a minute I'll remember it. I've had to replace this. You can see it's black. I've had to replace this a couple of times. Usually it's because I've dropped it or something of that nature. Although once or twice it just broke while I was using it. I've had to replace my flippers inside the cam shell before. Fortunately, that's no big deal. It's actually, the expense there is actually having it shipped. The part's not very expensive. I've bought extra ravel cord. Still have using the same ceramic grease and the same PTFE dry lube that I bought when I bought the machine 2 years ago. I have not used any of that up yet. And I use sewing machine oil when I feel like I need to lubricate my hooks, my latch hooks on my needles. All right, so my cuff is hung and I'm going to bind off. Oh, good heavens. There we go. I bind off from outside my cylinder. I find it much easier to do than trying to reach across and bind off from across my cylinder. I leave my heel spring on during my whole bind off. That just helps keep the slack from getting in my way. And like I said, if it had a break, because see again, my left hand's busy managing my yarn over here. I don't really want to try to hold it, but I have to do something. Otherwise, when I pull, as I'm binding off, the whole cylinder moves, and I really, really wish it didn't do that. A little break right in here that I can just doop and hold it in place would be so nice. Or even on this other side back here, put a little break back here. Dean and Bean, if you pay any attention to me at all, I would really love a break. Oops, if you drop a stitch when you're binding off, it's no big deal. Nothing goes anywhere because your live stitches are caught on the cylinder's needles. You just pick up your working yarn and try again. Oops. Try not to split your yarn. Oh, see what I mean about it not staying put. Get very frustrated by that. So I split my yarn because I caught it in the hook. And so now I'm going to just back up till I can pick up my yarn again. Here we go. This would go so much faster if the cylinder would stay put. I need to get Mr. Duck Potato to design a brake for this. I bet you anything he could figure it out. I guess I could unscrew the gear from the bottom of the camshell, but then I wouldn't be able to turn it when I wanted to turn it. It's just a little annoyance. Otherwise, I'm really loving my Lottie. She and I make a Lottie socks, don't we? There's a bad, terrible pun for you guys tonight. Oops. Oh, now. Sometimes my latch hook sticks. There we go. And all the time my camshell moves. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to complain. It's just an annoyance, a constant annoyance that won't stay put. I feel like I should not have to hold the handle with my boobs to get this done. Whoops. Well, I don't see any too well, even with this big old bright light pointed straight down my camshell. But I'm too cheap to buy progressive lenses, so I guess I'll just struggle. Maybe next year. I'm a little bit afraid. I know people that have used progressives and they say they make them nauseous, but all the fine detail work I do up close, that may be a thing I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and invest in. Telling you, getting old is for the birds. But I guess it's better than the alternative, because you either get old or you don't. And if it's between those two, I definitely want to go ahead and get old. There we go. That's the halfway point. I swear this is like half the time you spend making socks on a sock machine is either starting over because you've dropped something that you couldn't fix, or binding off. Those two things seem to take the most. The actual knitting of the sock, small percentage of the work. Really hoping my battery's going to make it all the way till the end. I love my little GoPro. But she is a little on the older side as well. Aren't you, Ashley? For those of you who don't know, my GoPro has a name. Her name is Ashley. I like to name things. Whoop. No, stay put. This Hot Springs Fiber Company Seriously sock yarn is absolutely fabulous for machine knitting. It works in my machine like it was made for it. It's also equally fabulous for knitting by hand. In fact, the sweater I've currently got on is hand knit out of the Hot Springs Fiber Company Seriously sock base. So highly recommend this yarn. I use it every chance I get. And if you are interested in owning some of it, I have an affiliate link in the description box down below, and I would love it if you would shop all things Hot Springs Fiber Company from my affiliate link. It helps out the channel. It's no additional cost for you. And Hot Springs Fiber Company offers free shipping on all purchases over $10, which is not hard to do when you're buying yarn. Pretty much any ball of yarn, or maybe two at most, and you're going to hit that $10 mark. So definitely, if you haven't gone and checked out Hot Springs Fiber Company, use that link in the description box down below and go check them out. You're going to love everything they do, because I do. Oh my goodness. All right, I can see the main mark. We're getting there. So close. No, I gotta get through both. So when you're latch hook binding off, you have two stitches on these needles, right? You have the working stitch that you had when you finished your last round, and then you have the stitch that you picked up from, in my case, 20 rows below, or however many rows below your cuff is. So make sure when you're binding off that you get your hook through both of those stitches, because otherwise you're going to have a hole and a run. That's not good. I've definitely done it before, and it can be fixed from inside the sock, but it's not fun. And I always go one all the way up to the main mark. That's my last set of live stitches. And I always go ahead and just do the next needle one past the main mark as well, just to make sure that I got it all. Give myself a little bit of a tail to sink into the cuff later. And I'm just going to tuck that inside the cylinder. Drop all my needles. And I'm going to give it a little gentle tug. And it should, wow, slide right off. I'm going to meet you with the overhead so we can look at the two heels, the wedge heel versus the wrap heel. All right, so here is the sock that I just finished with the wedge heel. It is sort of a funky shaped sock. Definitely different than what I've been doing. And I had two of my kids try this on, and since it doesn't really fit either, it's too big for one kid and a little too small for the other, it was hard to tell. But the kid for whom the sock was just a little small, it looked pretty good on his foot. So you can see the triangular wedge. Here's the first wedge and the second wedge and the third wedge. It's kind of like making a gusset, I guess. And for comparison's sake, these socks I made yesterday for my husband have the wrap heel that I have done in the past. Now these socks, the machine knit socks, just I guess have a little bit more of a funny shape. They're not as smooth and pretty shaped as hand knit socks tend to be. Again, for comparison, here is a hand knit sock, and you can see the shape is a lot more like a foot. Now this one's also been blocked, which I'm sure helps. But this is a traditional heel flap. Actually, is that a heel flapping gusset? Yes, that is a heel flapping gusset. Right there. So, compare some heels. In general, I'm not real picky about my heels. I don't really care. So I'll have to try this wedge heel on a pair of socks that I'm going to wear so that I can see if I have a preference about how they fit. I do think this one looks like it uses more yarn. I mean, you've got this much heel instead of this much. I think one of the reasons this sock is so much bigger is that I did use my sock ruler, but since this heel is so much smaller, I think that while it works really well in the wrap and turn heel, I think it gave me a misread in the other. So this one was for my husband. I made a size 11 or 12. It's coming in about, it looks like 11 lying flat. It looked like 12 hanging on the cylinder. It fits my husband just fine. This one I made what looked like a size 7 in men's, and you can see it says that that's what size it is, 6 or 7, but it's really big on my kiddo. So might just be a thing where I have to go back to knitting a swatch and doing the math instead of using my shortcut ruler. This heel was not difficult once I got the hang of it. It was a little confusing at first. I like the look of this other heel better, so I don't know that it's going to be a thing I really worry too much about. I may just keep making socks. I have a good fit with my ruler most of the time with this kind of heel. So which heel do you like better? The wedge heel that we knit today, or the wrap and turn heel that I have done on all my previous socks? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have other things you'd like to see on my Sock Machine channel playlist, then let me know that too. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new. You guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time.